It's man like Dan. Come on! Welcome to Melanated Proud. Today we've got a special guest. Wait, well, okay, it's still on, yeah. I thought you took off your sunglasses.
No,
That's staying on. Yeah, we're gonna have a nice, serious discussion in it. But before we continue, just make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, we're gonna get straight into this, yeah? So, beside me, you got the lovely Rukiya. So, everybody's round of applause. Come on. Alright, let's get into it. So, today we're gonna speak about the real truth about being a young single parent. So the first thing I want to ask you is like, how old was you when you had your first child?
My son.
Yeah.
I was 17 going on 18.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's born September and then October I turned 18.
Okay, cool. So talk me through that, because it's quite young.
It is young.
Yeah.
I mean, the nuts and the bolts of it was, I was pretty decent at school.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really a tomboy. So boys weren't really my focus. Yeah, I had some boyfriends, but nothing serious. And then I decided with all my mates I wanted to go college. That was the beginning of the end, because then he's like, there was just like man aplenty, and it wasn't something that I was really interested in before. But then obviously that kind of age and just seeing loads of different guys, different girls, it was really eye-opening.
Yeah.
And that's where I met my son's dad.
Yeah.
And yeah, it obviously my boy wasn't planned. But I became pregnant. I really was scared to tell my parents, because no one wants to say that to their parent. And at the time I lived with my dad. Bit of backstory, my mum and dad broke up when I was about 9 or 10. And then I went with my dad and my brother stayed with my mum, because I didn't want my dad to be alone.
Yeah.
Even though they lived 5 minutes from each other. So I was still able to access whatever house when I wanted to. So obviously a teenage girl having to come home and say to their dad they're pregnant, it's not ideal. So I was a chicken. I wrote my dad a letter, bought his bottle of Dragon Stout and some cashews, left it there, called him and said, oh yeah, when you get home, read the letter. But he took it really well. He really did. He took it super well. He called me, he was like, whatever you want to do, I'll support you. In a nutshell, if you want to keep the baby, we'll keep the baby, and if you don't, I'll support you either way. Obviously my son was born, so I ended up keeping the baby.
Yeah. That's strong. Like, your dad gave you support from the get-go.
From the get-go, and my mum did. Obviously, I'm not going to lie, they were disappointed. It wasn't oh, she's pregnant, happy days. But the reality is, I'm pregnant, so they had to step up and help, because I was a child. Having a child, and my mum was really upset, more than my dad, because of the hardships that she went through, multiple jobs while she's trying to get her degree or diploma back then for nursing. She was doing housekeeping and cleaning while then going to night college, so she didn't want the same for any of her children. So for me to turn around and say I'm having a baby was really hard for her to come to terms with. Really hard for her to come to terms with. She wants better. She wants better, but
she doesn't want you to struggle as well, innit? So
no one wants their kids to struggle. Not when you're still going through a struggle. Do you see what I'm saying? Because you just make the struggle more prolonged. Because then they need to support you rather than concentrating on themselves and bettering themselves for you. They now have to concentrate on the next generation that your children are having when they're not even where they need to be yet. So
Wow.
It was difficult. It was difficult, but not impossible. And I have to rate my parents 110%, because my mum went down to part-time.
Yeah.
So I could still have a life.
Yeah.
I could still go on girls' holidays. I could go back to school, because that was one of the conditions. Is if you're going to have the baby, you need to educate yourself, you need to get a job, and you need to help contribute. It wasn't up for debate.
Yeah.
So with that being said, my mum went down to part-time to help out.
Yeah.
My wonderful dad redecorated and all the rest of it, because he's like a proper traditional Rasta man, like really traditional. So he didn't believe in like technologies and stuff like that, the radiation and microwave and everything was freshly cooked. But he knew having a baby, he needed to become more modern. Well, me having a baby, so dragged my dad into the 21st century, which was awesome.
But yeah, no, cool. We'll get into other stuff after. But was you literally going to be a single parent from the get-go? Was it one of those, or? Don't have to go into it. But
No. I'm trying to think. I want to answer it.
Picture the
I'm trying to answer it honestly. Me and my son's dad, it wasn't meant to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was two people who had an accident, who's then now trying to play adult.
Yeah.
Trying to make it work, but in reality, I knew that he weren't the one, and I didn't want him long term, and I think he felt the same. But now we're having a baby together, it kind of forced us to be in a relationship that, in hindsight, I know both of us didn't want.
Yeah.
So I think it was always predetermined I was going to end up being a single mum. But for the first year, he was around. I can't fault him. He was around. He done what he had to do. He stepped up to the plate. His mum, not so much, but that's her lookout. But he stepped up to the plate, and then things just went left and fizzled out, and
Alright, cool, no worries. But yeah, so with this sort of like topic, like it's quite common. However, I don't feel like people are aware of like the real challenges that people go through as well. So would you like to share some of yours?
Yeah, I mean, we all know people or a person who's had a baby early, and some of the stories are sad and some are successful. But as you said, everyone always talks about it in glossy terms. Do you know what I mean? It was difficult.
Yeah.
Money-wise, space-wise, trying to still be a child. I'm still trying to be a child and live my life, but you have to now look out for somebody else that, I mean, I love my son more than words, but when you're that age, sometimes you don't want to be a parent.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to look out for somebody else. You're having fun with your friends, but you don't want to go home because you told your parents you're going to be back at 5 p.m. so then they can get to sleep because they got work tomorrow. So, there was times where I didn't come back when I was meant to come back. And I'm walking through the house at 2 o'clock in the morning, knowing full well, deep down in my gut, it's a piss take because they've got to be up for work in a minute. But that's the perils and the pitfalls of having a baby early. You're not mentally ready. You're not grown like you think you are. You're still making poor choices. You're still making bad decisions. And like the money, because obviously I wasn't working, so it was like income support back then. Like you get your little money on a Friday or a Monday or whatever day it is, and you're like, right, £70 of that I've got to do nappies, I've got to do baby formula, he needs clothes, and you're left with like another 20 to last you to the following week.
Yeah.
It's not glossy. Do you know what I mean? Then you're relying on your parents to pick up that shortfall. Where really, if you've had this baby, I should be providing, but I'm too young to provide. So now you've got my mum and dad providing for me, clothing me and feeding me, which is their job.
Yeah.
But now they're doing it for my child because I don't have any income.
Yeah. So you felt like they was doing your job for you?
Yeah, there was. Yeah. There was. I'm not going to pretend.
Yeah.
Jamil was always well taken care of. But yeah, they was because what 18-year-old person, when you didn't finish school, you don't have an education behind you yet, has money. Unless you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, you don't have an extra income. So it does fall on to your parents and your family and stuff like that.
So in terms of stress, like did that hit you straight away, or was there a period where you didn't really think?
Honestly, no.
Yeah.
It didn't, because I am really maternal. So it didn't hit me. The sleepless nights, the crying baby, the colicky baby, your parents cussing you because they've, left at 7 in the morning and they've got home at 7 in the morning and you haven't done the dishes yet because you've been at home with the child.
Yeah.
I think my baby didn't stress me. It was everything else that was going on around me. The expectations that, all right, you've had a baby, but you've still got housework to do, or you've still got stuff to do. You've still got to look for a school course and all the rest of it. It was that outside.
So you say it's more pressure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the pressures from everybody else what was making it difficult for me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't, like, looking back, it wasn't precious. It was, that's expected. You should be, if you're at home, why have you not done the dishes? That the baby does sleep. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think for the first year, it was fine because there was 2 of us. That it did become stressful when he kind of like dropped out of the picture, and it really is now you and your family.
Yeah.
That's when it, I think, when my son was about 1, that's when it hit me. It's time to fix up now.
Yeah.
110%. It's time to fix up and go back to college and get your shit together.
Yeah. But when you was like speaking to your friends or like just going in like college and etc., like, would you say that you was experiencing any sort of like criticism or like guilt or worry about other people's opinions and stuff like that?
Not from my friends. Unfortunately, we all kind of had babies within that same kind of period. Some before, some after, but within that same kind of time frame. So we were all kind of in the same boat. But you do feel the pressure and you do feel a stigma from society.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, from society. 1, because you are a young parent.
Yeah.
2, and I hate to like racialize everything, but it's a fact. 2, you're a young black parent. You feel the stigma, you feel the judgment, the silent judgment when they're looking at you. You go into toddler groups and play groups and they're looking at you, seeing that you're super young, and then there's an expectation there that your kids in social services care or something along those lines. Do you know what I mean? Or you're some kind of drug addict who's doing a weekend visit with their child. That you always felt a stigma attached. Going to the park, and it's like, all right, you look young, but it's not unheard of for people to have children young. And it's like, oh, it's so kind of you taking out your brother so, you know, your parents can relax. And it's like, oh no, that's my child. And they're looking at you like, oh. And that's it.
Oh.
That's it. Like,
well, how did that make you feel?
back
Obviously, it's a
then,
while ago, isn't it? But
yeah, back then, it was just part and parcel of life. So you just kind of, you just don't worry about it. Sometimes you internalize it, you do, but it's now looking back, it's like, that's so rude. It's rude.
Yeah. So you're only noticing that now. That at the time you wasn't really focusing on it.
You're not focusing on it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there were times that you did, like you go home and you'd be like, oh, that little old lady down the road, like she judged me. She judged me, but she doesn't know that I'm gone back to college and my son's in nursery and both my parents are working and I live in a nice area and both my parents have good homes.
Yeah.
You're judging what you see. A young black woman with a child who must be on drugs and the dad's not in the picture. Dad wasn't in the picture, but you don't know that.
Yeah.
You don't know that. You're making an assumption.
Yeah. So how did you deal with that? Because like, obviously now you had a child, and then all of a sudden like you're open up to a lot more criticism or judgment.
Yeah.
Like, how did you actually deal with that?
Scrutiny's everywhere.
Judgment. Because you at times you might not even hear anything. No one will say anything, but now it's just the eyes on you.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? It's the eyes. That's exactly what it is. It's the double take that people would do. It's the, how old's your son? Oh, he's 3. Oh, my son's 3 too. Well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm back in college. And you can just see them making like the calculations in their mind that, oh, you were really young when you had him. Oh, that's commendable. Like, do you know what I mean? Like
Commendable.
Yeah, it's those kind of comments that when you're young, you don't know how to deal with. So you either, it goes over your head a lot of the time. You don't know what you're dealing with, or you are that stereotype that they want you to be because you get black angry woman.
Yeah.
And then you're angry with yourself because you now portrayed yourself in the light that they think that you are.
Yeah. So did you have like a lot of arguments because of
not arguments, but more like just telling people telling people about themselves, but actually in the wrong way, because you can put someone in their place without being rude. It's just facts. It's factual, and it is what it is. But that comes with age. When you're that many years young, you don't have that yet. So you're doing it in a way that just comes across rude, that comes across aggressive. And yeah, there was sometimes I was that person.
Yeah. Wait, so from that moment, would you say all of a sudden now you feel like you've got to prove yourself to people? Yeah,
you definitely constantly always feel like you had to prove that you ain't gonna be the stereotypical young mum who goes on having multiple children with the same man, or multiple children with different men. That was something that I was very conscious of, that I wasn't going to fall into that trap. I wasn't gonna be that person who had multiple children and then there's no way out.
Yeah.
That's your life. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wanted more for my child. Like, the reason I went back to school and all the rest of it is because I wanted more for my child. I think I always said that my child he was my saving grace. He was my savior, because I was going down the wrong route, smoking, drinking, all the rest of it, and falling pregnant I feel like it was God's plan, God's way of redeeming myself, going, no, I know that you're capable of more, but you're not following the picture. So for me, he was my savior, and that's why I knew I owed it to him to be better. So
that's strong. Yeah,
it's what I did. It's what my parents helped me with, going part-time so I can educate myself, so I can still be a child and go on girly holidays and rave still and all the rest of it. So I owed it to them also to be better.
Yeah. So in terms of career though, like, was you ever like worrying that now you've got a child, you're not gonna be able to do the things that you set out to do, or was there any sort of like, I don't want to say hindrance, but like, was it a thing where you was finding it difficult to progress to where you wanted to go to because of?
Yeah, because when you don't have a child and you decide to go on to any kind of further education, you can do it and not have to worry about who's going to pick your child up, who's going to give your child dinner while you're at school, and do you know what I mean? How you're going to get there? Is there enough money for the week to get you there, the travel, so you can still eat, pay the nursery fees, clothe your kids? Like it's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot of thought process. So luckily you do get like a nursery grant. I don't know if that still exists, but when he was little, there was a nursery grant. I was able to go to school and it was 99% paid for. And he was there while I was there, and you were still able to use the nursery when you weren't there, so you can study. So sometimes somebody else had to pick him up because my course would go on longer than the nursery was open for. So there's all those little things that you have to juggle. And luckily I had friends and their parents who I've grown up with, and my mum couldn't do it, that would step up because they lived more or less next door to the college and stuff. So I had a great support network, and I'm not naive. I know not everybody has that. I am lucky I had that, which enabled me to study and then go on to university and stuff like that. I was blessed.
Yeah, because it's not saying that it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah, it's so true. Like it really was. Yeah. Otherwise,
but you know, some people don't have that.
It's not impossible. It just takes longer. It's what should take 3 years might take 5 years, or maybe 6 years, because there might be times that you can't do it. You don't have enough money. You don't have the support to be able to someone to take your kid to nursery for you, because you got to leave at a particular time, but nurseries don't open till whatever, so you still need to pay a childminder. So if you don't have all those things in place, and then contingency plans, and then contingency plans for those contingency plans, then yes, it makes it very, 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 very difficult to almost impossible.
Do you feel like there was a time where you felt like you had to forgive yourself, or you was being too hard on yourself? It could have been earlier on. It might not be for you because you seem to be well supported in it, but was there a time where
I've not forgive myself? Let me think. Actually, yeah, forgive myself for not being in a better position when I had him. For still trying to grow and mature while he's still growing and maturing. I think looking back, it wasn't the most fun time for him, because as I studied and worked and went to uni, it was a lot of going to a childminder's in the morning, then my mum picking him up from the childminders, feeding him, I'm coming back from placement to get him from my mum to start this whole routine again, day in, day out. He wasn't, I was his parent, and obviously he lived at home with me, but actually other people was parenting him because I'm trying to better my life and make it better for him. So yeah, there are times when I talk about it to my friends now. I had this conversation the other day that it's, I look back and feel a bit sorry that he didn't get that, what he needed from me. But actually it was, I'm sorry but not sorry, because it was short-term pain for long-term gain and long-term being successful and giving him what he needs in the future going forward. So it was a sacrifice that I had to make. In my mind, it wasn't up for debate. I had to make that sacrifice. And I'm glad that I did, because he wouldn't be where he is now. I wouldn't be where I am now. And he's not harmed by it.
Yeah.
That's what makes me not beat myself up about it. He wasn't harmed. He was never left where he shouldn't have been left. He was always in the care of professionals or family. And it's what I had to do.
Yeah. What would you say was the biggest challenge that you faced?
Dealing with his dad. That was the biggest challenge I had to face. Trying to get him to step up to the plate and be responsible and be a caregiver and be financially and emotionally responsible. I get it. We were young. He wasn't, whatever little money he was making, and it wasn't always legit, but doesn't matter. Whatever little money he was making, he was in the mindset that it was his. And it wasn't for his son. That was the biggest challenge. Plenty arguments, plenty times he's come in for our child and didn't turn up. And I just got to the point where I didn't tell my son that his dad's meant to be coming, because I didn't want him to be disappointed.
Yeah.
But luckily, Jamil was never disappointed, because my dad was his dad. He had male role models. He had my dad. He had my brother. He had my cousins. He was never not lacking that male leadership that he should be seeing, and positive male leadership. Men going out to work. Obviously my brother was younger, so he was doing his studies. Men still cooking and cleaning and looking after the home. He had all of that, where I fought tooth and nail for his dad to be that, but I'm glad his dad wasn't that for him, because his dad didn't have those kind of trainings that I needed my son to be around. Yeah. Which is, I know some of you guys are thinking, no, that's not your call, blah, 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 but it is. It is when you realise that someone is not the person that you think that they are, and that, or they're toxic, then it is my call to remove that person from my child's life, because he's my child, but he's our child, but you're not taking any responsibility for him, so he's mine. And if you're toxic and you're letting him down and you're not being that positive role model, and you only want to come for him to show him off when there's a party, then I need to remove that from my child's life. And
I guess you're protecting him, innit?
I have to protect my child. And the door was never closed. It was, when you're ready to be a decent somebody, you're welcome to come back.
At any point, would you say your mental health was affected?
Yeah, sometimes, because it's lonely. It's a lonely place when you're having a child and everyone that's doing their thing, they're either at college or they're working or they're out having fun, and for that particular weekend you can't go out because your parents have their own lives too.
Yeah.
It's lonely. It's a lonely place, and you're ringing people and you're just hearing ha 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 laughing. It's like, oh man, you should be here, and you're just like, all right, great. I can't come.
Yeah.
Like it can be really, you can really retreat into yourself when you're at home and your kid's gone to bed and you put them to bed, or they're lying on your chest, and it's a beautiful feeling having your baby sleep on you, but you're still like, oh, I wish I was doing X, Y, and Z. And it can become, you can become a little bit depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I sink into a depression? No. But did I have some depressed days and moments and times? Yes. 100%. Did I have times where I'm beyond stressed, and then I go back home to my mum and dad to help relieve the stress and help me help take care of him? Yes.
So in terms of like all these challenges, how would you say you managed to overcome them?
I'm a really strong-willed person anyway. I'm really independent. I'm bloody minded. I'm focused and I'm driven. So that coupled with the support of my family and my friends, like the friends that I've had from when I was 11 years old, I've still got now to this very present day. Do you know what I mean?
That's
like that is what helps pull you through, because there are times when you are sad, and I have been crying for whatever drama his dad's bringing to my doorstep, or for whatever lack of money that I might have had, or it's taken me too long to get to where I need to get to. I always had people to call. So I'm really blessed with that. And my friends are really good because they will call you out on your bullshit. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And when I'm right, they're just like, yeah, this is what we need to do. How are we going to do this? Come and spend the weekend at mine. Our kids can play and we can have company together. And so
you took a lot of accountability. So you wasn't really making excuses, just focus on what you can do, taking responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone makes excuses sometimes, but fundamentally, no, it is the choice that I made to have him. And you have to remember, I had choices. My parents said, whatever you want to do, we will support you. So I made the choice to have him. So I had to then roll with that and live up to that, because I remember even though I lived at home and they always watched him on the weekend if I wanted to go out, it wasn't a hardship for them. It really wasn't. They loved it. Like, as I said, my mum and dad had split up, and I'd be like, oh, Dad, do you want to watch it this weekend? My dad would always be like, yeah. And my mum would then be like, oh, but your dad had him last weekend, the weekend before. What about me? So I was lucky in that respect that I had all of that. But I think there was a time that I was just going out a little too much for their liking. And I remember my dad saying to me, you need to slow down. If you don't want to parent, then we will raise the child. And it wasn't that I wasn't parenting. I was just going out every weekend because I'm still growing. I'm still a baby. You want to go out with your mates. And so with all those good influences behind me, that's what made sure that I kept on the path of trying to better myself and trying to be a better person and a better young adult growing into a mature adult. That was a wake-up call. That was a wake-up call because I know my dad's serious.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a court thing. We're not going to court to fight for him. He's ours. Like, you don't want a parent, this is what we will do. So, yeah, you know, it wasn't always roses and peaches. Like, I was still growing, I was still making mistakes, but I had guidance behind me and the right people behind me to make sure that that's what they were, mistakes that you don't make again.
Yeah. So what would you say is your sort of advice to the younger sort of generation? Because they're quite active in it. So
I don't want to sound all corny and cocky, but don't be in a rush to grow up. Don't be in a rush to lay down with another human. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got your whole life to have sex and to be in a relationship, in a committed, loving relationship. Because the reality is, there's very few people that have been with someone from when they were 15, 16, 70 until they're 80, 90, 100. It's very, very few people that happens to. And we are all too much in a rush to grow up, to be adults. And there's no need. You have to ask yourself, if you have sex, you have to bear in mind that you could become pregnant. Yes, you do have options, but some people don't have those options. So if you're partaking in those adult activities, you have to ask yourself, are you financially able to provide for that human being that's going to come into the world? Do you have accommodation? Do you have support? Do you have a network? Are you educated? Are you in the process of educating yourself? Are you in a gang? Like, if you don't have answers to those questions, then you shouldn't be having sex. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't even be in a relationship. What you need to be doing is being a child and grow when you're meant to grow and not force it. That's the only advice I can give the young generation now, because the reality is they're not going to listen to it anyway.
Yeah.
But if you're going to take away something, ask yourself this question: that person that you're laying down with, are they going to be there for you? If you're unable to provide for yourself and their child, are they going to provide for you? Do they love you? Have you even had a talk about marriage or being engaged? Or have you even met their family? Like, if you haven't met their family, the likelihood is you're just one of many.
Yeah.
Or you're just one of many for her. Like, it's not just a man thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Psychologically, though, what do you think the impact is? Because it can go left as well.
Yeah, the impact is you miss out. You miss out on a lot. One of my biggest things that I believe that I missed out on was the uni experience. I went, but I was there, lecture, running home to make sure that I can get back before the childminder starts charging me £1 a minute. You're late. Like, I didn't get to stay on campus, have fun, do all these what do they call it, that first week, freshers week didn't exist for me. Like, I missed out, and I would have loved to have went away and done all of that and grow in a timely fashion that I should have, but I didn't. I didn't. And as I said, for me, missing out on a lot of my son's formative years, because I am in college, then finish college, then working, then going to university, you miss out on a lot. You parent on the weekend. You're rushing to get him in, and it's 7:30 because you finished placement. There's no time to ask him how his day went. He's already eaten at the mum's or the childminders. It's bed. Like, so you're there in person, but it's like you're only getting glimpses of them, and you're hearing about how they're progressing from everybody else. That there for me is something, as I said earlier, I have to live with. That's quite psychological for me. It's something that I have to square in my mind and said, but it was for a bigger purpose. It was so you are not going to be a stereotype. You're going to break all the cycles, but it still haunts you.
Yeah. What advice do you have to young single mothers?
It's a tricky one.
First we've done just young people in general, innit? But now directly those that have literally just got into a situation that you was in, or even younger. So
it's a tricky one. Don't let your child be an excuse why you can't achieve.
Come on, let's hear some more on that.
Because yes, I don't want people to think, oh, but you had it easy, you had a mum and a dad and all the rest of it. I did. So I can't speak for if I didn't have it, because I don't know. I did have it. But I did have friends who didn't have a mum and a dad. They just had a mum. Or some of them, they were in care. So they didn't even have that either. You can't let having a baby be an excuse for why you don't want more for yourself. You have to say, okay, this is the cards that I'm dealt with. How can I move forward? How can I make sure that I'm earning enough to maintain this child, to maintain myself, to have my child be proud of me? Because it's too easy. It is too easy to fall into that trap and live off, I think it's at universal credit now. It's too easy to fall into that trap. But the reality is, what's £80 a week? I don't even know if it's still that anymore, but what is that? It's nothing. It's nothing. Go to school if you don't have an education. There is help out there. Use the help. Don't be embarrassed. It is embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Your income support, and you've got the milk stamp, and you take it and you get the milk and make sure your kid has. It's embarrassing as hell. But it's a means to an end. Don't make that be your life. Don't make your kid get to an age and he feels like, or she feels like, they need to be on road to help support you because you've gone and had multiple children. Like, don't let that cycle keep repeating itself. Stop the cycle. Stop making excuses. Use all the help, all the government initiatives that there is out there, and educate yourself. Because unfortunately, if you're not educating yourself, you are going to end up in that cycle. Your child's going to end up in that cycle, and it's going to keep repeating for generations. And then you just have generations of children's and family in the government system, just constantly relying on some kind of benefit. And
you got me in a trance, man. Saying some powerful stuff.
But, you know what I mean? But for Black people, we need to break out of that cycle. We want to aim to be more. We want to see our children become things that we never even had an idea that we could even become. And that should be your only motivation. Not about the latest car, the latest phone. There's too many gal that I know whose hot on the latest car, then they upgrade every 6 months or whatever it is, but yet there's no food in their cupboards. They're not educated. They're relying on their roadman baby father to bring in the big bucks. Like, if he leaves you, or you decide to leave him because you decide enough is enough, what are you going to do about it? That, for me, is really important. And that, for me, if I was speaking to young boys or girls of any colour, any kind of race or nationality, that's the same message that I would say to them. What are you going to do about it? They're here now. What is your next steps? Okay, your mum and your dad don't want to know. It's sad, but that's the reality of life. That's your life that you have to deal with. What help do you need to go to where you're going? If you don't want to take the help that's out there, then you shouldn't have had the child in the beginning. And it's cold and it's cruel, but it's true.
Yeah. So I guess for you, you're more like solution focused. Like, what happened? What can I do now? Like, what choices can I make to better my situation?
Of course. What's happened has happened. You can't put that like spilt milk back into the bowl. Do you know what I mean? It's done now. Let's find the solutions to make sure that you're in the best possible position for that child. Because it's a long-term process. It's not, all right, okay, so I've got a job. It takes years to be like, all right, I've got a job. I'm now actually making headway in that job. I'm actually getting promotions, or my pay keeps going on up. What can I do next? What can I do next to increase that earning potential, to actually spend more time at home with my child, to actually make me like me? Because a lot of the reasons why sometimes we make these excuses is because we are not happy with ourselves. So it's easy to blame, and it's not even a blame the child thing, but it's easy to just be like, oh, I've got to be there for my son, I've got to be home for him. No, it's because we are not confident enough to put ourselves out there to do what we need to do. And we need to just change that narrative that people have put on us. Change the narrative that you've put on yourself, more importantly, and think, what am I going to do? And as I said before, it's really important that we use all the help that we have. Don't worry about your friends laughing at you because you're on income support, or you are using the government initiatives to put your child in nursery while you look for a job. And yes, it might be a low paying job, but everyone has to start somewhere. I started somewhere, you started somewhere, we all have to start somewhere. But if you don't start, you will never be anywhere.
But that's a powerful line you just said right now. If you don't start, you'll never be anywhere.
How are you going to get there?
Yeah. So the action is most important. You got to act.
You've got to act.
Yeah.
I mean, of course you're going to have some low days and spend some time in wallowing, woe is me.
Yeah.
I've had many of them.
Well, the thing is, like, your situation doesn't define you, innit? Like,
it doesn't.
You can make the most out of that situation. So it's always about having that positive outlook. Like, yes, it happened. Yes, different challenges happen in life, innit? But you can still turn it for your good, innit? Like, if anything, that gives you extra motivation.
100%.
Like, there's so many positives that you can take from it, and like I said, it gives you extra motivation. So now you've got a reason to continue. Whereas if you don't have that motivation there, you're gonna be inconsistent.
And you're chasing your tail. You're always doing the same thing. Like the definition of madness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is you're doing the same thing all the time, expecting a different outcome.
Yeah.
You're never gonna get a different outcome.
And like you said, for you feel like you needed that because you was going in a different sort of path, innit? And so that kind of redirected you. So
it really did. Like, I mean what I say. To me, he was meant to be here. It might not
Yeah.
be for anybody else. I can't speak for anybody
Yeah.
else, but for me, he was.
Yeah.
Because I reached a point in my life where I was doing all the wrong things.
Yeah.
All of the wrong things. Making poor choices. Like, well, ridiculously poor
Yeah.
choices.
But you are where you are now. So like,
I am
how would
where
you
I am
say your experiences have shaped you to who you are now? So like, whether that's your mindset, like how has it shaped?
It's allowed me to be, I suppose it's hardened me a bit.
Yeah. So thick skin, develop
Yeah. Definitely developed a thick skin.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you say? Resilience.
Definitely resilience, and definitely driven and motivated.
Yeah. I can sense the perseverance as well.
Continuous perseverance. But yeah, I think the thick skin has enabled all of those other things to come through, because I'm not worried so much what other people think of me.
Yeah.
I care,
Yeah.
but I don't lose sleep over it anymore. Like when you were younger, you do want to act a certain way or try and be a little bit less who you are to conform and to fit in with what society or your peers around you expect. But as you get older and you realise I am who I am, and I'm actually, more importantly than that, I'm happy with who I am.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Yeah. But that's the thing, like your experiences have shaped you to who you are now. Like all that time you was receiving the judgment, the criticism, the eyes, like you're developing sort of like another layer. And now you don't really care. Like if you get criticism, you're not gonna care because you're proud of who you are.
I'm
like,
definitely proud of who I am. And also, I mean, yeah, there's still times where it does bother me. I'm not gonna say
you're not
you know what I mean? Yeah. Because you see, even now, it's like, for example, at work, and you get new members of staff that turn up, and people are talking, and they're like, "Oh, do you have any kids?" And you're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, how old are your kids?" And you're like, 7, 10, 22. And you get, "Oh, wow, that's a huge age gap." Well, clearly it is. Like, you can count.
Yeah.
Oh, so how old are you? And again, you still get that. You get, it's not all the time, because some people hide it better, but it's those that feel the need to voice it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at them like, it doesn't matter how old I am.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, if you got something to say, just say it, because it always ends with, "How old are you?" And you tell them their age, and they work out your kids' age, and they work out how old you are when you had your kids. And then they're just silent.
Yeah.
But sometimes I challenge them on that, and they'll be like, "Is there anything else that you want to know?" Because you have no business asking me how old I am anyway, to be nosy to figure out how old I was. I'm not embarrassed. Them days when I was embarrassed are long gone. So far gone. I'm not embarrassed, but I'm going to embarrass you for asking that question anyway.
Yeah. You don't have to give your energy to those people, man. It is what it is, man. Like, but what I want to do, discuss some of his accolades right now, because it hasn't been all doom and gloom. This guy's been booming.
No, it hasn't been all doom and gloom. My number one, that's what I call him people, he's my number one, has graduated from uni this summer. He done biomedical science.
Come on.
Yeah, well done, baby. And he's now going to start his master's in January/February. So he's doing really, really well. And I am super blessed, like a different kind of blessed, because he's never brought problems to my door. He's never brought police to my door. He's never brought multiple girlfriends to my door, or mums beating down my door going, your son did this.
Yeah.
Like, little bit of a nerd. But
Yeah.
I would rather that than the problems that some people have with their children. And I do attribute that to my family and myself being firm but fair. Definitely firm but fair, and letting him know that the only way to be successful, unless you are very business minded, entrepreneurial minded, and you have that skill set it's just there from you from the get-go, is education.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And I've been lucky that he's quite smart.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky in that respect. And
well, it's interesting because like it started off with a moment where there's a lot of struggle, uncertainty. People could have had all of that criticism. They might have had certain expectations for how your son's going to turn out to
and
be.
how I'm going to turn out.
But look at it now, innit? Man's graduated.
Man's
He's a
graduated.
proper nice guy. You said that he likes cooking as well. Like, he just seems like a lovable
He's
person.
Good guy. He has a job. I'm working. Stepdad's working. He's got siblings now. And on his days off, he's the one that's dropping them to school and picking them up and actually cooking a meal. Well, that's part of his rent. He doesn't pay physical rent, but his rent is once a week he has to make a meal for the family because we're out here busting our asses. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know there's not very many 22-year-olds that would do that.
Yeah.
Their answer would be to their parents, no, they're your kids. What am I cooking for people for?
Yeah. But it's mad, like, some people might have seen him as being a burden, but it's gone from being a burden to a helper. Like, he was never even a burden.
He was never a burden.
He was a motivation.
No, Jamil was never ever a burden to me. Yeah. I probably felt that I was a burden to him. He's never been a burden to me. He's always been my soul. He's been my number one champion.
Yeah.
The reason I call him my number one, because he's my only son. I've got 2 daughters now. And 2, he's been there through everything that I've been there for going through. So he is my number one. People probably think, why isn't your partner not your number one? Because for me, my children will never go anywhere.
Yeah.
God forbid me and my partner split up. I mean, we've been together for decades now, but God forbid we split up. My children will still be there.
Yeah.
So that's why he's my number one. He's my ride or die. He's been there from everything. He's witnessed all my successes, all my failures, all my growing up, all my not growing up, so to speak, and mistakes and everything and so on and so forth. And he's always thrived. And he's always motivated me to be better. Yeah.
So, and you haven't turned out too bad either.
I haven't turned out too shabby. You know, I'm still not where I want to be.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend.
But you're not far off it either.
I'm not far off it. I think having 2 more little humans has slowed down. And the reason I say slow and not stopped, because as I said to you before, it does prolong things. It has slowed down my progression, but they're getting older. I have the support of their dad and my mum. Unfortunately, my dad's passed, so he's not here. But I will get to where I need to get to.
Yes, you will.
So I'm not fussed.
Yeah, like I said, you're not far. So
yeah,
you try to just you're not far, innit?
I'm not far, but it's still. I just want people to know that I'm still a work in progress. My life ain't perfect.
Look at Hollywood though. Like, she's made it in life. I can't lie.
No. I went out last night, and you don't want to see what's behind the glasses. So yeah, So that's it. My life is not perfect. Life is not perfect. You just got to roll with the punches, and you've got to make sure whatever mistakes that you make, you don't make them again. That is the most important thing I want people to get from this is we all make mistakes, but don't make them again. Otherwise, they're not mistakes anymore.
I was so mad. I was about to ask you for your final message, and this is what you just dropped. Say that, innit?
There it is.
Yeah. You want to be contacted by anyone? To be a LinkedIn, anything like someone might want to speak to you for advice or something. Like, how can they?
All right,
you know what?
Just message Daniel and he will pass it on.
Yeah, I'll do that. But no, it's been a pleasure, man. I hope you guys have really just taken what she's saying in. If there are any single parents that are listening, like really do just like reflect on what she said. Like it's not over. It's just the start of a new beginning. So really and truly, just keep pushing. There's nothing that can hold you back. It's all about taking accountability and just striving to become the person you desire to be, but also making the best sort of situation for your child as well. So, Rukiya, round of applause.
Thank you, Daniel.
Deserve it. Hollywood.